Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome to our fourth episode of AWS She Builds Tech Skills EMEA show. My name is Julia Bluszcz and I am a data scientist from ProServe team based in Warsaw, Poland. And I'm super excited to welcome you to our June episode. So far, I hope that you are all familiar with our formula and what we are all about, but maybe as a quick reminder for the ones who are joining us for the very first time, She Builds Tech Skills is a show truly dedicated to help underrepresented communities in tech to get access to diverse hands-on technical trainings ranging from data science, DevOps, solution architecture, and many more topics. So we aim to give these underrepresented communities visibility over the work that they are delivering at AWS, and also to promote these technical skills among people who are actively trying to get into the field. And today I am joined by my amazing co-host and fellow data scientist from Berlin, Antonia. How are you doing today, Antonia?
Doing great despite the heat wave that I guess is currently everywhere. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm Antonia, also a data scientist, but based in Berlin with the AWS ML Solutions Lab, and I'll be the co-host for today.
Awesome. And as always, we are also joined by Marisha, who is diligently working behind the scenes, moderating our show and responding to all your questions and comments that you might have in the chat. So feel free to ping Marisha if you need any help with the show. And also, if you have any questions, either to us as host or to our special guest that we have with us today, feel free to post them in the chat and we will make sure that Virginia will answer all your questions. And Antonia, maybe you could give us a bit more information on what we are going to discuss today.
Sure, I can do that. So today we're talking about a topic that is a very important topic for a lot of technical roles. It's infrastructure as code. And we will learn what's under the hood and why it's the missing piece of the puzzle. And as always, we have a demo in the end. And to do so, we are joined today by Virginia. She's an expert in this field. So thank you so much for joining us today. Virginia, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your journey so far at AWS?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy and glad for being here joining the data scientist team. But I am coming from the solutions architect team. So I'm based in Amsterdam and I work with what we call SMB customers. So that stands for small business customers. And I practically responsible for all these kind of customers in the southern part of the Netherlands. So I support them, or part of my role is to support these customers to create architectures in AWS and recommend all the AWS best practices, how to build the cloud native solutions as well in our infrastructure. And with these kind of customers also, it is very common and very important to support them into how to migrate their existing on-premises workloads to the cloud, right? And take advantage of all the services that we have. So that's what I do as a solutions architect with these kind of customers. And I have been already in AWS for 1 year. So 1 year and a couple of months. So it has been really quick, but I'm so glad for being here.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so you already gave a short sneak peek, I would say, on infrastructure as code, but maybe we start with a quick intro and quick definition of what's infrastructure as code in general.
Yeah. I think it is very important to start talking about this topic to first understand which are the components to build a solution, right? So usually when we talk about, okay, let's do an application, we require the software component, right? Which it is, all the developers do that job very well. But then we require a piece of a resource to host that software component, right? And this is usually the hardware component, and historically all these on-premises resources like servers, firewalls, load balancers, databases, and all of them are required to deploy a proper application. So now with all the pace of innovation in the technology, with solutions like the cloud and all the possibilities that we have there, the piece of innovation and the piece of deployment in a software component is not the same that the hardware deployment, right? So because
Yeah.
it is very kind of sometimes a hard task to start configuring the resources, and even if it is an easy task, it usually can take time, and if it is easy, the human eventually can get boring and just make a mistake, right? That's also common. So the pace of innovation is not the same, so we cannot really go live with new resources, new application features, and so on if we are not in the same line, right? So basically it is like the main question is like how to do that, how to improve that pace of innovation between the hardware and the software component. And then it was like, okay, what if we use something similar to what it is used in the software environment, but not for hardware, right? And this is how the concept of infrastructure as code born. And basically, it is the possibility and the approach to deploy and manage your IT resources, but with a piece of code. That's the bottom line, and that's why this is now the important and the missing part of the puzzle to really have the software and the hardware component innovating at the same pace. So, yeah.
Cool. And if I understand you correctly, like, can we then say that this infrastructure as code concept is something like very specific to cloud environments, or is it also applicable in some on-prem solutions?
That's a good question, and indeed can be used in both sides. It will depend on. By the way, that's the favorite answer for solutions architect to answer with the "it depends on." So it
I think
depends
to all
on your
software
requirement,
engineers.
right? Yeah, that's true. So we are gonna say that a lot during the session. So it depends. You can use infrastructure as code as well to deploy resources on premises. So it depends on your tool that you use. So fortunately, nowadays we have different tools that can be lock vendor for a specific cloud provider, or it can be open source that usually this can be used on premises and in any cloud provider. So yeah, that's the advantage. Really, we can now build and take advantage of what you already have in your on-premises environment and complement that with the cloud.
And I think another advantage is also that you can collaborate a bit easier, right? So in our team, CDK is always for data science. It's like we also discussed it with Julia beforehand. It's a sort of a pain point because it's always, okay, you've built that solution, but now I want to deploy it in a different AWS account. How do I do that? And then you cannot replicate all the steps manually, but you create infrastructure as code, and then you can just take that piece of software and deploy it in a different account. So is that also something that you see as a major use case of infrastructure as code?
Yeah. It has many use cases. One of the is as you mentioned. The idea is that infrastructure as code approach took as reference the best practices that are done in the software development, right? So all these continuous integration, continuous delivery options that you can do with your application, now you can do as well that with infrastructure as code. So if you do a change in your configuration, control the version of your applications, deploy just what it is changed, and all this kind of stuff. So the idea is that now you can even deploy both together, your software and your resources at the same time, and have control over that. If you require, for instance, the use case that you mentioned or it is very similar to disaster recovery. So in case that you are deploying your resources in one region and this fails, you can set up your resources in another region very quick, right? So it depends on your strategy, but the idea is that you can accelerate this deployment process and use the same best practices that now are used in the software development area. So that's one of the best use cases. And I would like to mention as well that also a very common use case that you might be already familiar with is the AWS managed services, right? So, Jos, if you have been watching this season, I think that it was the first or episode that you talk about Amplify. So this is one of these managed services that just can be really facilitate the deployment of applications. So from the user perspective, it is just some clicks and deploy your application very easily. But under the hood, it is a CloudFormation template, right? And this is how AWS is doing. It's providing services as well, but managed services that are very easy to be used by end users. But under the hood, this is an infrastructure as code template. And yeah, you have just Amplify, you have as well Elastic Beanstalk, as well as deploy Kubernetes, and a lot of the services under the hood use infrastructure as code. So it's a very interesting use case of how you can really take advantage of what we already have in AWS to offer new services. But at the same it's the same, right? But it's just easier for end users. So yeah.
It's customer obsession kicking in.
Yeah.
Maybe one very short comment. Amplify is this like node code solution for building this infrastructure. And if you're interested in this topic, like the first episode of our show is still available to watch on YouTube. So feel free to go there and then check this episode out if you are interested in what Virginia is talking and you don't like coding too much. So this one will be for you.
Yeah. It was a nice episode.
So you mentioned before that you are working mostly with small and medium-sized customers, and like I can imagine that they might not be the more experienced in this topic of infrastructure as code. So I was wondering, do you have maybe some tested ways of like getting started, or maybe some good advice on how to get started into this topic?
Yeah, I think again. It will depend on your preferences. If it is just about what you prefer, there are different options at different tools. One of the it is split like in declarative languages and imperative languages. So some of the most common tools that you can start using is CloudFormation, which it was created by AWS, and this is a declarative language. So basically, you in a piece of code using JSON or YAML language, you specify which are the desired state of your application. And I always say that declarative languages are very easy because it is like to create a sentence, right? Where you have the subject and the verb, and you basically say that I want to deploy this S3 bucket, enter, and something like that. It's not exactly that, but it is easy to that. And so if you are or you don't have like many programming experience, you can go with a declarative option, just like CloudFormation, or if you prefer also to learn something that it is more cloud agnostic, you can use Terraform. It is very well known and also used by a lot of customers. And it is declarative as well. It has their own language that it is HLC, but it is very similar to what it is in YAML. So it's the same. It's declarative and it is easy to learn that language. But on the other side, if you come more from the developer area and you are more familiar with programming languages like Python, Java, TypeScript, then you can take advantage of another tool that we have that is called AWS CDK, that this stands for Code Kit Development. And basically here you take advantage of, you develop AWS resources using infrastructure as code, but with your favorite programming languages. And this is what we are going to see today in the demo. So this is one of these cases where we do kind of inception. So CDK uses under the hood CloudFormation, but it's still infrastructure as code. And if you are familiar already with any programming language, it's easier to start with this tool. But as you prefer, any preferences, all of them are free. So what you really pay for is for the resources that you deployed in the cloud. but you can start with any of them.
Awesome. So talking about CDK, do you want to jump into the demo so that we can
Yeah.
see some hands-on infrastructure as
Yeah.
code use
Let's
cases?
jump to one of these use cases where it is one of the tools, and at the same time, it's an excellent use case of what you can do with infrastructure as code. So just let's jump to the demo. Let me explain you first briefly what we are going to deploy. This is a simple application of what we call following an event-driven pattern. That means that based on an event, we are going to trigger an action. And the bottom line is that we are going to deploy these resources that you see here in the screen with our CDK tool. In this case, my favorite programming language is Python, so I'm going to use the Python environment to deploy CDK. Basically, what we are going to do is we are going to upload a picture into our storage component called S3, and this will trigger an event that will be detected by our service called Amazon Event Bridge. And once that it is detected, it's going to launch a Lambda. So this is the action. And this Lambda is the serverless solution. So it's a piece of code, but without managing the underlying infrastructure. And this Lambda basically makes an API call to our machine learning service called Amazon Recognition to get insights about the picture that we uploaded, right? So I just want to know more information about the picture, and then these insights will be saved in a DynamoDB table. So
So we even sneak some machine learning in there.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah.
say that.
Well, always, we need to add a little bit of machine learning to make it more interesting.
To add the sparkle.
Yeah. So you got like, let's use recognition. It's easy to use it. So yeah, these are the resources that we are gonna deploy with CDK. So let's jump into the console. And by the way, I'm using a service called CD9, that it is a IDE for AWS. So instead of having my code locally in my computer, I just use this service. So this can be deployed as well with your Visual Studio locally or so on, or you can also use one of these services that is doing again inception. So CD9 is deployed with CloudFormation, by the way. So basically here, let's deploy what you are going to see here. As I told you, I'm using Python. So basically, we are going to deploy a CDK application, and then we are going to use the CDK command line to interact with that application. So basically, we have a main piece of code that is a class calling another class. So we are going to say that let's instantiate the resources that are in the CDK piece of code. And here you can define your account, the region that you require. Of course, you can use environment variables and so on. Not today. So here in this piece of code, you are gonna deploy your resources. So the main part of the CDK is what we call constructs. So this can be seen similar to what it is libraries in normal software development. So these constructs are the basic unit deployment of the CDK, and this encapsulates the cloud component that will be deployed. So these are already created by AWS, so you just need to import them and start using them, and that's the huge advantage. However, you can also customize your own constructs and just start using it as well if you need it. So that's the main advantage. And before explaining the rest, let's start interacting. So to wait the deployment option. So as I told you, we are gonna interact with the command line. So basically, we are gonna use the CDK, and then from there we can just use ls to see if we have different stacks and choose one to be deployed. We can use CDK as well, diff, for instance, if you have already a template deployed to check the differences. So right now we are gonna deploy our stack. Basically, I decided that one of the advantages is that you can customize these templates, right? So if I share this code with you, you can deploy it in your accounts. But we know that, for instance, the S3 buckets are globally and names are unique. So we cannot repeat names, right? How to avoid that? You can create random numbers in the name, or you can say like, okay, let you choose the name of the bucket, and then we are gonna deploy the stack with this customization. So for that,
I would just cut in for a second because I see that you're moving on already, and I just wanted to ask one question about those stacks that you mentioned. So if I understand correctly, stack is like a collection of resources that we will be deploying, right?
yes, it's correct. It's correct. It's like you can create, like, for instance, a machine learning stack and deploy all the resources that will be part of the machine learning application as part of the stack. You can create another stack that will be networking stack and configure all the networking component there. And then you can, for instance, in networking, if you configure VPC and subnets and so on, you can share this output information into another stack, right? So at the end, you can connect stacks between them, but it's also a good practice to isolate them to keep control of what you are deploying.
Okay, great. And in our case, the whole infrastructure that you showed in the beginning, this will be a part of just one single stack,
Yeah,
right? Or...
it's just one stack. Yeah, for demo purposes, it's just one stack. Yeah,
okay, perfect,
and
thanks.
it is called CDK IAC stack. So
Cool.
simple like that. Usually, you can just deploy your template with CDK deploy. In this case, as we are asking for a parameters from my side, we are gonna use this command as well. And this is just a random name. So let me show you quickly in the console so you can check that everything is done properly. So here in the CloudFormation console, well, I have two stacks already deployed that are part of other things. We can go quickly, for instance, to DynamoDB. We don't have any tables, right? So the idea is that all the resources that I show you in the architecture will be deployed together. So functions, I have 3 so far, and are even here we can see the last modified date, right? So I'm just gonna deploy with this command. And under the hood, what CDK does is that it compiles this code, this piece of code, and it compiles until it arrives to CloudFormation, right? So it translates this piece of code into a CloudFormation template. So here you can see that I get a brief summary into the CloudFormation option of that piece of code. And then I just ask that please be deployed. And then we need to wait some seconds to these resources to be deployed. So in the interaction with the application, it's easy like that. You can see here the amount of resources that you are going to deploy and what is the progress of these resources. And yeah, let's wait for a minute. And I don't know if you have questions so far.
I think that there are no comments so far from the audience, but on the other topic, I have one hardcore CDK fan in my team, and like this person is always telling how cool CDK is and how better it is than every other infrastructure as code tool out there. And I remember that he was saying that one of the really big advantages is that you don't really have to very specify all the permissions, like IAM policies in very detail, that really CDK makes your life easier in this area.
Yeah, that's a very good point. we know that this is usually a problem, right? If you forget to configure the proper role and the permissions, you just don't have the access to do an API call, even if the rest is done properly. And yeah, CDK makes that for you. You still have to configure some roles, but for instance, to do the Lambda call to recognition and so on. But for instance, with services like API Gateway, that you usually have to configure all these permissions, CDK does that for you. So you really don't need to be concerned about that. So that's nice feature in
Yeah,
there.
I absolutely love it, because for me, pinning up, like pinning down the policies that have to be there, it's always like half time of my work. I sometimes I have this feeling.
Yeah. It's a nice feature indeed. Yeah. So let's see, it is still creating the resources, but we can see in CloudFormation that the stack appears already. We can see here the time and that it is created in progress. So even, to delete resources and so on, we can go through the command line, or you can go to the stack and just delete it there, right? So it's already created. Even here we can see the template of the CloudFormation, the time. It took 10 seconds more than the last time. And then we can just go to our stack and do what CloudFormation does perfectly. And for instance, go to the resources, and here we can get the links to each of the resources that were configured. So just to go to the bucket, this is the name that we decided, and we are directed to the bucket. So just let's see how this works. You can see it's empty. So the bucket was already created there. If we just check into the other services, if we go to Lambda, we see that now we have more lambdas than before, and you can see that the name implies already that it was created with CDK, and here some descriptions that we configure in advance. And so let's do a try. Let's go as well to DynamoDB. We already have now a table, right? So now let's see if this works. So let's update a picture. So I have already some pictures here.
Beach. Very good for the summer.
Just to think that we are there. And okay, so that part is super fast. So it was already uploaded. So let's go to DynamoDB, to the tables.
Now we've uploaded the image, and that would be the event that triggers.
Yeah, that's the event. The image uploaded. It's the image event. The event bridge detects that API call and triggers the Lambda, and the Lambda does the call to recognition, and then the results are saved here in the table. So you can see the name, the name of the image. And then we can get more details about that image. So we can see that, okay, that image contains nature, it was taken outdoors, right? And as it is a machine learning model, so we know, we see the confidence of that information, right? So then we see that it's a sea. So yeah, it seems it's very, very accurate. So ocean, so a lot of synonyms, but the point is that with the architecture and with the event-driven pattern and CDK, we could automate the process for the image recognition, right? And it was created so fast. So I don't know if you have a question before destroying the resources, just to show you something as well about that.
The cleanup, always important.
Yeah, if you have any questions for Virginia, feel free to post them in the chat, in the comments, and we will pass them to Virginia. Because time flies quite fast when we are going through CDK and the demo, and it's almost time to finish our show today. So one last chance to ask questions to Virginia. And in the meantime, maybe you have some last piece of advice for people who either want to get into the field of infrastructure as code, or maybe some your like personal tricks of the trade that you have learned on the way?
Yeah, well, personally, I was not a lot into these tools, but eventually I found that it was really, really useful for deployments, and not just with customers, but also personally, I started working with infrastructure as code in my master thesis project, and it was a very important piece of my proposal. Not even the cloud resources themselves, but the infrastructure as code component to automate the deployment of the resources. So at that time, I started with Terraform. It was easily for me because I don't come exactly from the developer area. So, and now I have more customers working with CDK, and also it was kind of easy for me as well to start with CDK, right? So it's interesting. It is very useful, and now it's more and more common to be used. So just try to learn it. I do recommend it, and choose the tool that you prefer based on your experience and preferences. But do it.
All right.
Just let me show you quickly how destroy the components. So we closed the session as well, destroying everything. So we deployed it so fast, and we destroyed them as well quickly. So just the final conclusion is that we can decide that resources like the bucket or the DynamoDB table that contain data are not deleted. So even if the stack is deleted, these kind of resources are not deleted, so you don't lose your data. If you really want to delete everything, you just define a policy to say that these resources will be deleted even if the stack is deleted. So just to keep as well protection on that, because it is very easily to deploy it, and it can be dangerous as well, right? If someone just has a human error mistake and delete something, and then we just have the internet down. So that's just a recommendation and a fun fact of what can be done. And yeah, and that's all. Hopefully
Yeah.
that you have found it interesting.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks so much for showing all that. Like for me, it's also like always mind blowing that it takes less time to deploy everything from scratch than, I don't know, clicking around in the console, and yeah, we can easily deploy this in multiple regions and multiple accounts with really no hassle.
Yeah, that's the idea. So I think that also, if you can check in GitHub as well, a lot of examples already configure and try it there as well. So yeah, that's also a recommendation.
Yeah, and for those who are planning to start their adventure with CDK, there is a CDK workshop available prepared by AWS, and maybe okay, I see that our moderator already posted this in the comments, so feel free to check it out. There are a lot of learning materials available there that you can try out on your own at home. And I think it's time for some final remarks and some announcements for the future. First of all, maybe last chance for some self-promotions for Virginia, because it turns out that Virginia is really getting hooked to Twitch and live shows, and this is just the first show of a few that she will be participating in this week.
Yeah. So you can join as well next Thursday at the same link, 3 p.m. to discuss about networking and content delivery solutions as well.
Awesome. So feel free to join Virginia if you're into networking, and if you enjoyed our today's session, to get some more wisdom from our awesome solutions architect. And a few announcements to finish up.
Exactly, I can take over. So we have the EMEA summit, the online summit happening tomorrow. So that's a session or a full day workshop or event from AWS where you can really dive deep into your different roles. And then also we have another conference online on July 7th, Build on Live. So that's made by builders for builders. And then also this week, we have yet another event that we would like to promote. That's the AWS Tech Conference happening on the 30th of June. It's organized by the AWS user group in Ukraine, and it's an incredible lineup of speakers. So we have the CTO of Amazon, Werner Vogels, as a keynote speaker, and a lot of other awesome speakers from AWS, but also from other users. So definitely tune in if you have time on Thursday. And last but not least, we have the 5th episode of the She Builds Tech Skills EMEA show. And it's going to happen on July 26th, same Twitch stream. And it's going to be around the topic of chaos engineering. So that's definitely a catchy title. And we hope to see you there. And we'll have Sarah from AWS joining and shedding some lights on that topic. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed the session today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for Virginia for talking about that, and hope to see you soon in the future.
Thank you so much, guys. So glad for being here.
Thank you. See you next month.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.